Okay, everybody, Mark Burgess here, Big East Bass Fishing, bringing you another video. As I mentioned in the last video, I was thinking about doing a story from the road. So I look back at some of my history on the playlist, Stories from the Road, and not all the videos are in that playlist. I have to go back through all my videos and recategorize them into the playlists. I didn't do playlists early on. All right, so that reminds me, I have almost 700 videos on my channel. It's amazing. I mean, that there's that many videos. I mean, it's just, I don't know where the time is gone, but they add up, obviously. So so I looked, and I do not believe I've told this story before. And what I want to talk about is the very first professional bass tournament I ever fished. Okay, so I'll tell you how it all came about, where we went, how I did, what I learned, and then we'll go from there. So back in 1996, whoa, right? I was with Skeeter and Reynolds boats, and I had met Frank Geiner, who was on the Skeeter team. There were 4 of us on the Skeeter team through Reynolds. Met Frank Geiner, had obviously done some shows, with Reynolds, and I don't remember the exact details, but this was in November of 1996, the tournament was. So obviously prior to that, Frank talked about him and a couple of his buddies heading down to Lake Hartwell in the fall, November of 1996. Now, I'd never been down south prior to that, except for, to Florida on vacations, Disney World, that kind of thing. My dad had a tackle shop in Orange City near Daytona. I'd been down there a couple times. We fished St. Johns River, Blue Springs area. We fished a couple lakes from the bank, stuff like that. But not tournament fishing, not tournament bass fishing. So I was still relatively new to the sport. I mean, I didn't join a club until 1994. The first full season I fished out of a bass boat, Lisa and I fished the club together, was 1994. Okay, so we had success at the club level, pretty much right off the get-go. But so kind of new to the the bigger events and so forth. I'd fish some some nation events, other than the trail events, not trail events, but club events, I should say. So I had my appetite. I was hungry for more, right? So Frank told me about this. They were gonna drive down to Hartwell and fish Hartwell in the fall. So I said, yeah, I'm game, I'll go. So it was Frank Geiner, Ed Cowan from New York, and Chris Mann. Now, Chris Mann was originally from Connecticut, was in the same bass club as Brian Kirchhoff. Okay, and I don't know if he was living in Connecticut at the time of this trip. He might have moved to New Hampshire or even Vermont. But anyway, we agreed to meet down at the Exit 10 Diner off of 84. If you're familiar with down there, you're getting close to the Danbury area. You're already south of Hartford. Met there. That's the first time I met Chris Mann. Now him and Ed Cowan, Frankie Geiner, they've been fishing the Invitationals. This was the Bassmaster Invitationals, pro on pro, for a while before that. Okay, Ed had even, I think, been to the Classic a couple times to that, before that point. So I met up with Chris Mann. Traveled south, we picked up Frankie and then Ed. traveled down towards Hartwell, South Carolina. I don't remember where we stopped. I don't remember where we stayed. I don't know if we slept in the truck. That all is like, that's just gone, right? So I do remember, though, stopping early in the morning, so I think we might have drove straight through. Stopping at a Waffle House. That was my first experience at the Waffle House. And the funny thing about it was the Waffle House we pulled into was on a four-way intersection, 2 main roads, not far from the highway, I'm assuming. That was one of 4 Waffle Houses within sight. There was one on every corner. There were 4 Waffle Houses, which I thought was bizarre. So I had never had grits before, or a T-bone steak that was that thick for breakfast. Okay, so those were all firsts for me during that trip. Don't even remember where we stayed. I know we didn't have a house. It was probably a hotel. Hotel, motel. So anyway, it was when the full field fished for 3 days. It was pro on pro, and obviously never seen the lake before, right? So we're down there to practice right before the tournament, and I remember locating this area that just, on a map, a paper map, looked like something that I could relate to, like from back up here. So that's where I focused my attention on. I looked, I covered some area, and I definitely didn't want to, I knew I didn't have time to see the whole lake, because Lake Hartwell's huge. So I stayed relatively on an end of the lake. I remember, I found this area, and I ended up seeing bait, shad. I ended up seeing shallow bass moving between shallow cover. Lake was drawn down a bit, clay banks, not a lot. It was kind of featureless. There was some stumps here and there. Obviously, we didn't have the technology that we have now, but there was some birds actually working with some schooling fish, and that turned out to be the area that the tournament was won in. Actually fishing with the bait that the tournament was won on. Okay, it was won on a rattle trap, chrome blueback rattle trap. Larry Lazone. The third day, he was paired with Rick Lilligard. Rick had already won a tournament and kind of knew the process, okay, and talked Larry off the ledge, kept him calm, netted his fish, retied his baits, helped him land the fish, all of that, okay? Helped Larry win that tournament. Never made a cast that last day. And he won that tournament. What was happening was the bass would corral up the herring and push him against this real subtle clay bank, little point. Little, just a knockout on a clay point, not hardly a feature at all. But that was where they had the advantage over the bait, and they were feeding on it. I never saw that, okay? I did see the bait and the birds, and I saw fish shallow cover. I just couldn't put 2 and 2 together, okay? I never, if I had seen that, maybe. So I'm, remember, I'm still green as the grass on this deal, right? So pro on pro, so I end up drawing some guys from South Carolina who obviously knew the lake really well. One of the dudes, and a gambler, took me all the way up one of the rivers past Buoy 100. I remember seeing Davey Height. We went by Davey, and he knew Davey Height. He waved to Davey Height. We're way to hell up this river. And didn't do well at all. And then another guy was just fishing local. He ended up, I can't remember his name, but he made a name for himself in the sport. Ended up going over to FLW, fished over there for years. I can't think of his name. But anyway, fishing Christmas tree brush piles around bridge abutments, okay? So the third day, I ended up, again, drawing pretty much another local guy, and I ended up catching one keeper spotted bass, okay? So I was able to cross the stage. Dewey Kendrick was there, Bob Cobb. Ray Scott was there, but he wasn't emceeing that event. But had one spotted bass, got to cross the stage with my one little spotted bass. Jay Ellis did well. He was way up the river near going toward, he said he could hear Clemson. There must have been a football game going on. I remember hearing his words. Now he was close enough where he could hear Clemson. He was in the current and fishing a spinnerbait in the current on brush and laydowns and what have you, and did really well in that tournament. So I learned a lot, an awful lot. So that was the very first professional tournament, fall of 1996. So I knew that I wanted more. I signed up for, it was the Eastern Invitationals, 4 events, and they started in 97, and I fished, where did we go? We went, one of the places was Thousand Islands out of Clayton. Fished that. I'm trying to think where else we went, but it was Santee. Santee was the 3rd tournament in that first year, my first year, full year. 4th professional tournament overall, and I cast a check, finished 31st, and fell in love with Santee. So I cast a check in my 4th ever professional tournament, but that was the 3rd tournament in the series. And I was 14th in the points going into this, and I know I've talked about this. One last tournament to go. It was Hartwell again in the spring. And again, completely clueless about what goes on there, okay? And, you know, I mean, it turns out after the bass spawn, they come out to the shallow bars and long extending points, sandy points and things like that, and they feed on the spawning herring. And they ambush those fish and feed on them. And this like phenomenal topwater action going on, right? How I missed it, I do not know. Never saw it going on, and I'm pretty observant. But I never knew that deal was going on. I caught a limit each day, but didn't do well, and fell from 14th in the points to like 32nd or 3rd or 4th, something like that. And long story short, you know, would have qualified had they didn't change the rules to, they made that Legends, they filled the field, BP Top 150s. I would have qualified for it based on all the people that were double qualified with the BP Top 150s and this particular tournament. When you took them all out, I was well inside the top 25 where you needed to be to fish the BP Top 150s. As a friend of mine, close friend of mine pointed out, I wasn't even close to being ready for that. But hey, nevertheless, right? You get the opportunity, you take it. So that was my first professional tournament, Hartwell, 1996. Just had the hook in me after that. Loved everything about it, the traveling down south, the camaraderie. Both Ed Cowan, Frank Guina, Chris Mann, still friends with them to this day. I see Frank more than anybody at the shows because he's, you know, I'm a teammate with him now with Luz and Strike King, and we're good friends with Al Cappy, so get to spend time at the shows with each other. So that's that story. Hope you enjoyed it. What else? Also, people ask me, I'm sitting in front of my brand new Skeeter, 2026 ZXE 21. Ask me how I like it. I love it. It's probably my most favorite Skeeter of all time, and I have had more than my share. All right, so I'm starting to ramble, which I could do for a long time. But anyway, thanks for watching, and keep your eye out for more. All right, appreciate it. Thanks.